get it for the fourth time. Prescott, a lot of time, airs it out deep down the field. CeeDee Lamb breaks the tackle. No one home. Touchdown, Dallas.
A bad day in Big D yesterday. We're here to talk about it today. Good morning, everybody. Max is with me. Ben will join me at 12. The 44-22 loss over the I'm not in the stream yet, am I? You need me in the stream, don't you?
Yeah, I'd prefer it, but if you don't want to show your face after a loss like that, I completely understand.
I'm potting myself up in the stream. My apologies. A little bit off today. 44-22, the final in Dallas. It seems like the loss itself was the least of the concerns. We've got a quarterback who is hurt again. And the defense is playing as bad as any defense in the league is right now. And look, last year they were able to overcome a bad defense because they were playing the likes of Deshaun Watson and Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler and Kenny Pickett and Andy Dalton. But this year, when you've got the likes of Dak Prescott twice, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, and still down the road, Jalen Hurts twice, dare I say it, the season feels like it's on the brink. And I promised last week that if they lost yesterday, I would not go down this path in mid-October with still 10 games left. But if Jaden's going to be an in and out of the lineup quarterback, well, that alone ends any serious hope of having a good season. But on top of that, the defense being in total disarray, it's worse than I thought it would feel here on this Monday morning following the loss yesterday. They're 3-4. They're obviously not out of it. They don't have the worst record in the league. But 3-5 looks like more than just a possibility. It looks like a probability heading to Arrowhead a week from tonight to face the red-hot Chiefs. Now, I said that the 44-22 loss against the Cowboys is actually the least of their concerns. Their biggest concerns out of the game yesterday are a quarterback who is hurt again. Dan Quinn said afterwards that Jaden Daniels will have an MRI today on his hamstring. It did seem like it was not a super serious injury. He gave the thumbs up to his family. His mother and Quinn talked about after the game that Jaden wanted to come back in to the game and play. They wouldn't let him. So I guess that we could get some really good news today. But you certainly, with this guy now through 27 games, not all 27 involving him, we're now on injury number 3 in 27 games. And I can do that math. That's an injury every 9 games. I know it doesn't work that way, but it's for emphasis to say, yeah, this was, with his frame, the number one concern that some of us had. And we are seeing now with him that a brilliant talent has to be available to play for his team to succeed. And we've got 3 injuries in 27 games and 2 already in 7 games this season. That is obviously a big, big storyline coming out of the game. And it's not just a weekly storyline, as in the lead up to the Kansas City game. There's a bigger picture conversation we have to have. And we've had it before, but now we really have to have, I got so much on social media. God, thank God I don't look at it during the game. I really don't. But I look at it before the show. I mean, I must have had at least a dozen tweets explaining to me that as long as you let Jaden run and as long as you have him as a running quarterback, he's never going to survive. He got hit in the pocket. He got hurt in the pocket. Yes, the Green Bay injury was with him on the run, but it wasn't a designed run. It wasn't an option run. It was a scramble. Stop it with that. He is clearly a player that I think we're going to have to deal with this. and that is going to be problematic because his talent is unmistakable. His impact on a game is unmistakable. And I'll get to his game yesterday in great detail when I get to my game take. But availability is the greatest ability. And it's possible he's going to miss more time in a season that, from that standpoint, the injury standpoint, has really gone sideways. And it happens to every team. Every team has years like this one, and there's a long way to go. There's still 10 games, but it seems like, as NFL fans, right, when teams start this way, it typically continues this way. And you have those seasons in which you get bit by the injury bug. And Quinn said after the game, injuries had nothing to do with this. We don't make excuses. That's fine. We can talk about it. I know what injuries are in the NFL. They're a reality. They're not an excuse. They're real. And when they happen, they impact games and they impact seasons, period. End of discussion. You don't have to call in and say, next man up and all of that, bravado. Everybody understands, in the fight, when you're actually in the fight, next man up. But when you're evaluating it, of course it matters. You'd have to be an idiot to say that injuries don't matter, that they don't impact games and seasons. And so far, this season has been impacted by the number of injuries that they have had. With that said, I'm kind of with Quinn yesterday to a certain degree that the biggest issue for them wasn't necessarily that they were missing three receivers, their three starting receivers. It was an issue. It absolutely was an issue, but they had a lot of issues yesterday, a lot in terms of why they lost that game. All right, so I want to just hear in the open before I get to the specifics of, what was good from the game, what was bad from the game, and everything else. I do want to just start with this and acknowledge this for people out there like me who are massive Jaden Daniels fans and believers, and there's no reason, obviously, not to be, after a couple of games this year where it wasn't exactly like it looked last year. He didn't play well yesterday. The offense didn't play well yesterday. Part of it is the limitations that they had at receiver, no doubt. To say otherwise, again, is stupidity at the highest level. You can say both things. It limited them, and also, hey, by the way, too bad, next man up, overcome it. And by the way, they have overcome it. I mean, they overcame it 2 weeks ago. I mean, they had Debo on the field, which was helpful. They nearly overcame it the other night with a less than 100% Debo on the field. I think that was clear Monday night. One less mistake, and they probably would have gotten through that game, but they weren't going to get through this game, playing the way they played with the limitations or without them. They just didn't look right at any point. Perhaps they were on the verge of getting it together. They had scored on a long drive at the end of the first half, and they were on the move in the third quarter. We've seen bad halves or halves that weren't stellar, and then we've seen Jaden and the offense turn it around and be lights out in the second half. And they were certainly on the move in the third quarter, down 27-15. Would have been nice had it been 20-15 or 23-15 instead of 27-15. We'll get to, how they ended that first half when I get to the game take. But it's very possible. And I had a friend of mine who is a coach in town just say, they were going to score on that drive if he doesn't get hurt. And then all we were looking for was just one or two plays defensively the rest of the way. And there was going to be a chance. I tend to agree with that. I don't know if the defense was going to come up with the one or two plays that it was going to need to have, but they were on the move. Jaden had completed that 3rd and 10 off schedule to Chris Moore. And then it was the next play where not only did he get hurt, he failed to protect the football. And with that turnover, his 3rd in 2 games, and added to that, him leaving the game, there went any hope of some sort of, legitimate or even long shot comeback against the Cowboys. So, look, Jaden and the offense didn't do enough. That was true yesterday. They needed to play a flawless game. He needed to be what he was last year in games, knowing what the defense was up against the Cowboys, and they didn't. Now, what's also true about yesterday's game, and why I am willing to consider that here on October 20th at 3-4, with still 10 games left, the season is a bit on the brink. It is potentially about to come off the rails a bit. And let me just be clear. I'm not predicting that it's going to be. I've watched too many NFL seasons like many of you have. You know how things just change. And a couple of weeks from today, we could be thinking something completely different about this team. But you can only say what you feel in the moment. And I know that there's a chance that it will turn around. But in this moment, the defense is so bad. It is such an abject disaster with, I'm not sure, an obvious answer. And because, like I said, there aren't Jake Hayners and Kenny Pickett's and Spencer Rattlers and Deshaun Watsons and even like Daniel Jones in New York last year, there aren't a lot of those opportunities left. Or, there isn't a Russell Wilson game against the Giants. There isn't a Geno Smith game against the Raiders. There aren't many of those left. Maybe the Miami game in Madrid. I am concerned that the big picture is not very rosy right now. And I think that leads me to what we've talked about a lot going back to last year. Is it a personnel issue or is it a defensive coordinator issue? I've told you guys for about a month running. I have been told, and the most recent was about 2 weeks ago, it's not just the defensive coordinator. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But if you heard Dan Quinn after the game, it sounds like everything is on the table. He was asked about again, the explosive plays. And how about the play that we came in with, the 74-yard touchdown pass to CD Lamb, where Quan Martin and Marshawn Lattimore did their thing. They ran into each other for like the 7th time this year. It's actually becoming a ritual, a weekly ritual, that they run into each other, they knock each other down, and allow the other team to end up with a big play. And there were a lot of big plays yesterday. And remember when Joe Witt spoke last week, I said, this isn't about DeAndre Swift's breaking of a tackle on a 55-yard, touchdown. He, had sort of pinned that on, well, that's going to be called an explosive. Yeah, well, guess what? Olamide Zaccheaus' drop would have been an explosive too, of about 97 yards. Like, context, your defense was terrible on Monday night. It wasn't about one play and one missed tackle. It was much more than that, as it's been against any capable team. Joe Witt's been the team's defensive coordinator now for 27 games, 20 last year and 7 this year. And the defense during his 27 games has been majority of the time bad. And it's really bad right now. So Dan Quinn was asked about another 6 to 7 explosive plays that they gave up in the game yesterday. And here's what he said.
Dan, with those big plays keep happening, how frustrating, and first of all, why, I guess, but just how frustrating is it that game after game they keep happening?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. We're going to look at everything, man. We're going to look at everything to, have a play that goes down the field and you throw over your head, or a good battle. Like I can live with that one, but the ones of the big explosive plays that I can't put my finger on, that's a lot for us to dig into. If I had one specific reason, I'd say this or this, but yeah, we got, like I said, a lot to get better at, and it's definitely frustrating.
So Dan Quinn, going to look at everything. And by the way, if you've watched this, for him, wow, he was not happy. He was legitimately not happy. And Dan Quinn's not a pound your fist on the table, expletive, post-game coach. But you could tell he is on the brink himself of having had it with the defense. Now, there were other follow-up questions, and we'll play some of those. But the big takeaway, and it happened quickly, John Keim got right to it, is, we are going to look at everything. And let's be specific. The question was asked about the defense and the explosive plays that it continues to give up. By the way, I think he needs to examine everything, because I didn't love what was happening offensively yesterday. But after a game like the one yesterday, when another 6 to 7 ridiculous explosive plays took place, and by the way, now add to the defensive misery that they can't stop the run, which reverts to last year's biggest issue. They don't take the ball away. 3 total turnovers, takeaways in 7 games. Only the Jets have fewer in the NFL. I think everything's on the table, and I would say this yesterday, just like Monday night, you can't walk away from Monday night's game and say it was all the defense when the offense had 3 turnovers. You can't walk away from yesterday's game and say it was just the defense when the offense had 2 turnovers, lots of penalties, lots of drop passes, etc. But it does feel like a moment to me where something might happen. Not sure if it will, but the defense is a huge problem currently, and then looking at the largesse of 10 games left in this season. They've looked like a respectable defense only against opponents who were bad offensively or injured offensively. See the Giants, the Raiders, and the Chargers. Anybody that's had any capability whatsoever, and even a team like Chicago, who's, okay, they have been torched. And when it came to explosive plays yesterday, Dan Quinn said he's going to look at everything. So what's he looking at? Well, he's got, in my opinion, 5 options. Number 1, do nothing. Number 2, do something with Joe Witt Jr. from taking away his responsibilities as a coordinator, taking them on yourself as the head coach, or perhaps giving it to somebody else. That's option 2. Option 3 is just make personnel changes. Option 4 is do both. Take away his coordinating and play calling responsibilities and make personnel changes. And option 5, of course, is move on from Joe Witt Jr. 7 games into year 2, because overall, the resume of 27 games is not good. And I've said this before about 100 times last year, another 100 to 200 in the offseason, and even a few times this year. The personnel ain't great. I get it. But there are a few players defensively who are capable. I mean, their 2 tackles, at least yesterday, Kinlaw all season long, are okay. Luvu is pretty good. Sandra still, we thought last year, could really play. They drafted a rookie in the 2nd round who everybody thinks can really play. Yeah, there have been some key injuries, no doubt. Losing Wise, losing Armstrong in the game yesterday early was huge. But those are the options for Quinn. Do nothing, number 1. Number 2, do something with essentially demoting Joe Witt Jr. and either taking over the coordinating and game day play calling responsibilities yourself or giving them to somebody else. Option 3 is just make personnel changes. Option 4 is do both. Take away the coordinating and play calling responsibilities and make personnel changes. And option 5, and let me just be clear, I think this is a major long shot. I don't think it'll happen. I think Dan Quinn would do something in the offseason, but not 7 games into this season, because again, part of it is more than just the defense in terms of 2 losses in a row. They turned the ball over 3 times on Monday night. Hard to win a game -3. Now, you can say, I need to get some of those back. And they don't get any of them back. And yesterday, it wasn't like Washington's offense was matching Dallas's offense, score for score. But those are the 5 options. But look, the other thing is Jayden, back to him. You know, the offense and the offense's biggest problem, and it's a conversation I know that we've had, but we need to have it again, is that number 5 is injured again. You know, this time it's a hamstring. A few weeks ago, it was the knee. Last year, it was the ribs. We don't know whether or not he's going to miss a game or games or any of the above. But the big picture on Jayden Daniels being injured for a second time in 7 short games this season and a third time overall in the 27 games that he's been a part of the franchise is that it does feel like that this is going to be, you know, a theme every season. You know, he's going to miss some time because he's got a frame that isn't able to hold up necessarily against, you know, 17 games and the NFL talent. Yesterday, obviously, was, you know, all about him. There was only one way they were going to win that game, and matching Dallas score for score is if he ended up, you know, putting on the Superman cape and doing what he did so many times last year. But he didn't really do that yesterday at all. And then he got hurt. This is certainly part of today's conversation. You know, we'll see about this one. It's new. It's a hamstring. You know, it's not a rib. It's not a knee injury. It's a hamstring injury. I would wager big money that during the course of his career, we'll have other parts of the body that end up being a, you know, central point of our conversation during football seasons. Again, yesterday was difficult for him, you know, before the injury. No, you know, limited at wide receiver. And, you know, then on top of that, penalties, drop passes, a run game that wasn't really existent. Maybe they should have tried more. I'll get to that when I get to my game take. Just penalties galore. But at the same time, he was able to overcome that all the time last year. You know, the situation being he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to rise above penalties and drops and a bad defense. And perhaps, again, I don't want to leave this as not a possibility explored, because I'll tell you, before he got hurt, I'm like, all right, here we go. You know, the drive at the end of the first half, and then they're on the move. He had the 3rd and 2 run where he stretched it out to move the sticks. And then the 3rd and 10, the off schedule extend, and throw a ball to Chris Moore to move the chains. They're at the Dallas 39 pretty quickly, and they got a chance to make it 27-22 early in the third quarter. So we were perhaps on the verge. It's not like there isn't ample evidence that he is capable of going from a so-so half to a brilliant half in a game. We saw it against the Chargers 2 weeks ago. Really slow start and then brilliance the rest of the way without, you know, a great supporting cast. But he got hurt, and we'll never know on that. So here we are, you know, approaching the halfway mark of the season, approaching already the latter part of October. And this is a season that's under siege right now. It's under duress for sure. They've been an injured team, and now they are officially a terrible defensive team. And they have just one NFC win. The upcoming schedule looks brutal, and their starting quarterback is injured once again. NFL seasons are weird, man. There's a long way to go. 10 games. We know, those of us that have watched them, most of you as well, that the league will make you look stupid for declaring anything in October. But right now, Jayden's health, the health of some key players on offense and defense, and what Quinn does about the defense are the issues that need some resolution pretty quickly. I'll get to my game take when we come back, the specifics on what I liked, didn't like, and more, and then give you guys ample opportunity to vent on this Monday following an absolute beatdown in Dallas to the Cowboys to fall to 3-4 with the Chiefs on Monday Night Football at Arrowhead on deck. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We are also free and live on the Odyssey app. And don't forget, when I'm able to boot us up, we're also on our live YouTube stream. Just go to the Team 980's YouTube channel, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button when you get there.
When you just look at the collective over these last few weeks for the defense, is it execution, scheme, is it coaching? What in your mind is the biggest issue there?
Yeah, I wish I could have one thing, because I would say, okay, it's that. And so I think you probably heard me say it over the last year and a half. Execution is players and coaches. And so that's what we'll dial into to find, are we putting the guys in the right spot? Are we, digging into the right locations? Like as a coach, you always look, all right, what's the right amount? What's too much? So we got a lot to look into. To have an extra day to go, a good bit of it's going to be about us before we even begin our preparation on Kansas City. 8 days from now, we got a lot of things to improve upon. And that's also why I said it at the beginning, that the injuries are not the reason we lost. If you don't give yourself a real shot at things, to play it right, it just, you can't give yourself a good game doing that.
Yeah, he's right about yesterday's game. The injuries were a part of what was going on offensively. You saw what Dallas did, right? They loaded the box. They played man coverage more than they played any time this year because they felt they could against Washington's, group of receivers that didn't include anybody that was a legitimate threat, or at least they didn't think so. But the other part of the answer, and I want to play everything that Dan Quinn said in answering multiple questions about the defense yesterday and potential changes, because his first answer that we're going to look at everything was obviously one where everybody perked up and said, what does that mean? We may find out later today. His press conference, I think, scheduled for 3:30 this afternoon. Chris will have it on his show. Is that what time it's scheduled for, Max?
Yeah, usually Mondays are 3:30 on Zoom.
Yeah. All right, let's get to my game take.
Kevin's take. The good, the bad, the ugly from yesterday's Washington football team game. Here's Kevin.
All right, if you want, in about 20 minutes, you can start loading up on the phone lines. You can start calling in. I know how many of you want to vent. This is one of those days, it wasn't just a loss. It was a blowout loss. It was a blowout loss to a team that we hate to lose to, and it included another injury to the starting quarterback on a day which he was far from his best to begin with, and then it happened on a day in which the defense, for a second straight game, and really for a fourth time this year, was abysmal. And the coach suggested afterwards, as it related to the defense, he's going to look at everything. So there's a lot going on here. It's busy, 5-2 is kind of boring, like we had last year. Kidding. All right, game take. What I liked, didn't like, and a few other observations. So I liked Daron Payne in the game. Man, he is feast or famine, isn't he? In his career here, he gives you those games and those plays in which you're like, why don't you do that every week on every play? The man had a tackle for a safety and three as a defensive tackle tipped passes. He had multiple pressures in the game, even though he was not credited with a sack. There was one play where he absolutely destroyed the interior offensive line and was right there, and Prescott put one up so early. Prescott was so good yesterday. Put one up so early, and of course on the other end of the pass was a George Pickens for a wide open first down with number 2 somewhere in the picture. Actually, number 2 was in the picture a lot. Just wasn't able to make the plays more often than not. Daron Payne, it's one of those things where when you get into the all 22 and they grade it, there may be 10 plays that he took off and he'll end up with a poor grade. But man, he was noticeable many, many more times yesterday for excellence rather than non-excellence. Interesting that I will have a couple of defensive players on this list of things that I thought were good in a game in which the defense overall was, porous once again. On the list of things that were good, Tress Way, let's face it, we knew going into this game, they're going to score, and they're going to score a lot. So you got to match them. And so they win the toss. They take the ball because they're like, we're going to get the first lead. We're going to jump out rather than letting you jump out against our bad defense. And they're up 7-0. And Washington goes 3 and out on their first series. I got a problem with that series, and I'll talk about it, because there was an 8-yard first down run. 2nd and 2, you should end up moving the sticks. But we'll get to that in a moment. But the big play was the Tress Way punt, down to the 1 yard line. And then what a play by Percy Butler to keep that thing at the 1 yard line, really inside the one, allowing for that next play, which was the Deron Payne safety. And all of a sudden, instead of them taking over, let's say at the 20, because of a touchback, and then going down the field and making it 14-0 or 10-0, it's 7-2. You get the ball back, you go down the field 65 yards and score a touchdown, and you're up 8-7, even though I think the score should have been 9-7. I'll get to that as well. Tress Way is on the list of things that I liked. Percy Butler, for the same reason, but even more. Percy Butler had great punt coverage in the game. The punt coverage overall was outstanding in the game. The kickoff coverage, not so great. The punt coverage was great. Percy Butler stood out with his special teams play. I'm focused on special teams here on a day like yesterday. Tressway, Percy Butler. Let me add to that. Luke McCaffrey on kickoff returns. He had a couple that weren't great, and he was below his outstanding second best league average. But he had a 41-yarder. He had a 37-yarder. Luke McCaffrey's really good as a kickoff returner. He's fearless. He's quick. He's fast. He's got great vision. Keep kicking it to number 11. He did take that big, trying to leap over the would-be tackler and took that big shot at the end of the first half. But Luke McCaffrey is seemingly on this list of things that I like every single week as a kickoff returner. Jeremy McNichols is on the list of things that I liked from this game. That 19-yard run on that drive at the end of the first half, wow. 2 broken tackles. I mean, how many tackles is he going to break this year in a limited number of carries? I mean, he broke 4 or 5 on that 60-yard run against the Raiders. And on this particular play, not only does he break 2 tackles, but the last one, should have brought him to the ground, but he's able to keep in amazingly his balance, stay upright, and make it a 19-yard run. He only had 4 touches in the game, 2 runs, 2 catches. He totaled 45 yards on those 4 touches, so over 10 yards per touch. And I am sure that Jeremy McNichols probably gets some credit for pass protection because he does that well. Jeremy McNichols on the list of things that I liked. Robbie Chosen, they picked him up off the scrap heap not that long ago. Longtime NFL veteran. I think I remember him mostly from his days as a New York Jet. And he got, his first action of the season. He was targeted 4 times. He made 4 catches for 36 yards. He also drew two pass interference penalties. Only one of them was called, though. Actually, the one that got called probably shouldn't have been called. It was a 4th and 8 throw from Mariota that was not necessarily a great thrower on time. And I didn't think that was really PI. But the one in which they had the free play on the offsides on the final drive of the first half, and Jaden took the deep shot knowing that he had nothing to lose. How the hell is that not defensive pass interference? That gets called 98 times out of 100. It was so egregious. I actually had a problem with a lot of the calls in the game. Not that they made or would have made a difference, but it seemed like Washington was on the wrong end of many of them. I've got a list, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I put Frankie Louvu and Jacob Martin on this list. I thought Jacob Martin, look, I think he's good in pass pressure. He's quick. He's lean. He got credited for a half a sack, but he actually almost had another one. Dak got it back to the line of scrimmage or just beyond the line of scrimmage, so that counts as a rush, not a sack. But it was his pressure and him taking Dak down on that 1-yard gain just beyond the line of scrimmage. And Louvu must have had 2 or 3 TFLs. Where is he in the box score for yesterday? 1 on Javonte Williams, 1 on Jaden Blue. 2 TFLs in the game for Frankie Louvu. That's the list of things that I liked. Not much more. The list of things that were not good when I come back. It's long. I'll get to it in about 15 minutes, you can start getting onto the phone lines. Kevin Sheehan Show. The Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app.
All right, less than happy Monday, everybody. We start off in the National Football League. The Washington Commanders, they get smoked by the Dallas Cowboys, 44-22. Defense could not buy a stop and put themselves in a hole early. The offense couldn't dig them out. Then, when it appeared things could not get worse, Jaden Daniels goes down and exits the game with a hamstring injury. Dan Quinn says he will receive an MRI this morning, and he'll have more information at his presser today at 3:30. We look around the NFC East. The Eagles, they get the win over the Minnesota Vikings, 28-22, improved to 5-2, and sit atop the NFC East. The Giants led the Broncos 19-0 heading into the fourth quarter. Denver finds some life with the score. Then they pick off Jackson Dart and keep the momentum rolling to a tune of 33 fourth quarter points to win on a walk-off field goal. And the Giants, they fall to 2-5. The NHL Caps, they fall in a Sunday matinee to the Vancouver Canucks. Another DC team falls into a hole early as the Canucks score 3 in the first period. Washington attempts to claw back, but Vancouver puts the game just out of reach. Caps lose 4-3. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. And you can catch Den's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
throw. Prescott throws over the middle, and it's caught! Ferguson! Touchdown, Dallas!
How disappointing crushing was that series right before halftime, too, where you guys get back in it, you get the ball, and then they go down right time and score.
Yeah, words cannot explain. I was hot.
Yeah, that drive right before the end of the first half was a tough one. You took a 20-15 lead, but you left 40 seconds left on the clock. That was too much time against your defense. And that was, by the way, partly coaching. Get to that here in the game take as we continue. I gave you the things that I liked. Deron Payne, some special teamers, Tress Way, Percy Butler, Luke McCaffrey. I thought McNichols and Robbie Chosen, they played pretty well. And I thought Luvu had moments. Jacob Martin had some moments. Let's get to the list of bad from the game. Here's the bottom line for the last two games. They just aren't good enough to be the team that makes the most mistakes and come out on top. We saw that on Monday night. They were -3 in the turnover margin. That was the difference in the game. They just aren't able to overcome that this year, not against the teams they're playing anyway. And I talked about this on Friday as part of my keys to a win, that they needed to be near flawless, especially on offense, because you knew going in, you were going to have to match Dallas. And I pointed out on Friday that every possession needs to be treated as if the possession is the one that can potentially win or lose the game. I thought they would be a 4-down team. Opening drive, 4th and 3, their own 46. They're leaving the offense out there. They false start. Those are the self-inflicted things that have happened now for consecutive games that can't happen. They turned it over twice. They dropped 3 passes minimum in the first half that were big. They committed so many penalties. They didn't tackle well. When you have that, by the way, did you know they lead the league in drop passes? I didn't know that. Did you know that, Max? Did you see the graphic that was put up? They led the league coming into the game with 12 drop passes. Yeah, and then on the 13th, I saw a tweet, and that was what notified me. And then I sent it to you, and then there 3 more drops happened. It was great. I loved it. You're not gonna have a really good chance in a game like yesterday's against that offense versus our defense if you're going to commit 11 penalties for 118 yards, 8 for 90 in the first half, commit 2 turnovers and drop passes, and then make up for it by not tackling well on defense. It's just not going to happen. Some of the penalties, too, really cost them in the first half, field position-wise. They had, among their drives in the first half, and they had 7 of them. Did you know, by the way, the 15 offensive drives in the first half? Dallas had 8, Washington had 7. I don't count the last one when they needed out after Dallas scored with 10 seconds to go. The most in an NFL game this year. It was one long first half, but they had 3 drives that started from their 10, another one that started from their 10, and another one that started from their own 13, almost exclusively due to penalties. Washington's -5 turnover margin in the last 2 games, deadly. Now, those 2 turnovers came when they were already down 27-15, but they were driving to perhaps cut it to a 1-score game again. To be fair, Dallas didn't need the turnovers to win the game yesterday. Chicago did. But too many mistakes on a day in which you really couldn't afford any. Jaden's fumble was not great. Marcus Mariota's pick 6 was really, really ugly. Horrendous decision, terrible throw under duress. They needed to be, flawless or near flawless, and instead committed one mistake after another. A lot of them really, self-inflicted, not necessarily forced. They're just not going to win a game against that team's offense by giving away offensive possessions. Number 2 on the list of things I didn't like, the defense. Kind of like Monday night, right? It's like the 3 turnovers were the top reason they lost the game, but oh my God, the defense was just wretched. And it was again yesterday. There were a few plays here and there. I've already mentioned Duran's plays, few pass breakups here and there, a couple of pass pressures here and there. The bottom line is the good plays don't happen enough, and they don't seem to happen consecutively. You need 3 good plays in a row defensively, sometimes 4, to get off the field, and they don't do that enough. There are occasional TFLs, tackles for loss. They had 7 of them in the game. There are some occasional plays in which you're like, that's good pass rush pressure. There are occasional plays against the run. Hey, that's a pretty good job against the run. But they don't happen enough, and they don't happen on consecutive plays to end the opponent's offensive possession with a punt. Not against the good teams. They haven't this year. Dallas punted twice during the competitive portion of the game. And really, on one of the times they punted, it was all on Dallas. They committed multiple penalties, and they had like a 2nd and 25, and they just couldn't overcome it. Other than that, Dallas against Washington's defense yesterday during the real portion of the game, which is really the first 3 quarters, into the fourth quarter, barely. 10 real drives, they scored on 7 of them. They rolled up 409 yards and 37 points. Remember, 7 were on the pick 6. 409 yards, 7 of 10 drives, 37 points, basically 6 for 10 on third down. They finished 6 for 12, but during the competitive portion of the game, into the early part of the fourth quarter, before they took their foot off the gas and started to run clock, they just dominated. They had 12 plays, 12 in the game of 10 yards or more. They had 7 plays in the game of 17 yards or more. They had a 74-yard touchdown pass. They had a 44-yard play, a 33-yard play, a 24-yard play, an 18-yard play, and 2 17-yard plays. Whew. Hard to really win a game when you are just giving up chunk after chunk play. Lamb and Pickens are tough to cover, and Lamb being back elevated that offense to a place where you look at Dallas and you're like, if somehow their defense can just get off the field 3 or 4 times over the course of 60 minutes, they're going to have a chance to win every game they're in, because they are absolutely executing at an elite level offensively. Javonte Williams, 116 yards on 19 carries, 6.1 yards per carry. In the last 2 games, going into the Chicago game, I'm like, all right, they have improved defensively. And the loss of Dietrich Wise, big deal. Loss yesterday of no Dorrance Armstrong, big deal, no doubt. In the last 2 games, though, the run stopping. They've given up 224 yards to the lead backs, DeAndre Swift and yesterday Javonte Williams, on 33 carries. That's 6.8 yards per carry. Yeah, it looks like they're not a very good run-stopping team either. Not when they play teams that decide they're going to run the football. Like on Monday night, DeAndre Swift should have had another 5 or 6 carries in that game, just like Jahmyr Gibbs should have in the playoff game. Dak Prescott, he was outstanding. 21 of 30, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a 130.4 passer rating and 88 QBR. Washington in coverage, still a problem. You can pick your guy, Lattimore, Sandra. There were some PBUs, some pass breakups that were like in that given moment. Hey, that's not a bad play by Sandra. That's not terrible coverage by Lattimore. But again, they don't happen consecutively. Teams can just keep going to it, and eventually, 2 out of the 3 times they're going to result in positive plays for the offense. As I mentioned, another, Quan Martin-Lattimore collision on the 74-yard bomb to Lamb. I mean, you've got to be kidding me when it comes to this. Tackling wasn't good for the most part. How about the play where Quan Martin basically got carried by Javonte Williams on that 33-yard run at the end of the first half? Of the teams they've played this year, obviously, Dallas is the best offensive team that they've played this year. They are really good, and Lamb took them to another level. And the loss of Armstrong yesterday, very early in the game, was a factor. He's been arguably their best defensive player. It's going to be interesting to see if Quinn does anything defensively this week. They are moving in the wrong direction. They are now number 4 in the traditional yards allowed ranking of defenses, the fourth worst in the league. Next up on the list of things I didn't like, the offense was just out of sync, and nothing was consistently good. There were good plays, there were moments, and I really did think the third quarter drive, I'm like, here we go. They ended the first half on a long, very effective drive, and they were moving the ball to start the third quarter in Dallas territory at the Cowboy 39-yard line. But ultimately, this didn't really resemble what they were at their best against the Chargers or even against the Bears when they were at their best offensively. And I got to tell you, man, I love Cliff Kingsbury, and I think they've got a really good offensive coordinator. But there are many days when I come in here, and usually it's after a game like yesterday, where I'm like, I don't know. I saw that they were loading the box. Sure. I saw they were playing man coverage for sure. Let's maybe try to run it anyway, And they had an 8-yard run on the first play of the game, and then they throw the ball for -1 to Bill Krosky-Merritt. And it's like, it's an 8-yard run. And I also felt like, and I'll have to go back and watch the All-22, I kind of felt like they were running behind Cosme and Connerly more than Paul and Tunsil. I thought Cosme was really good in his first game back, from what I could tell. But I would have liked to have seen, and I think there have been too many moments this year where they've gotten away from or not given a fair shot to the running game. And I think the model for beating Dallas yesterday started with, offensively, we have to do our part to keep Dallas's offense off the field because we know it's a mismatch on the other side. If you're being real about what your team is, and I still am not sure that they get. I mean, we had Joe Witt Jr. last week talking about the DeAndre Swift touchdown as if that was the only play. And it was just a missed tackle, and it should have been an 8-yard gain, not a 55-yard gain. And it still goes in the, bucket of explosives. Yeah, think about the explosives that didn't happen to you on Monday night that should have. But I would have thought that the overall plan going into the game yesterday is we got to win the game on offense. We have to think about 4-down offense. We've got to run the football. We got to possess the football. We got to get the clock to churn a little bit. And I don't think they gave the running game a fair shot. I understand loaded box. We're going to check to something, and maybe some of those were checks. But it was Dallas. They were the worst run stopping, the worst defense in the league. And yeah, they changed things up. They played a lot of 8-man boxes. I mean, I think there were a couple of plays in which it seemed like they had 10 near the line of scrimmage. I also would have preferred to have run behind Paul and Tunsil more than the other way around. But look, out of sync. I mean, the 4th down and 3 on the opening drive, they're keeping the offense out there. They false start. There's the play in which you've got the possession back after taking after falling back behind after you took the lead 8-7, and that's that third drive, and Zach Ertz is wide open and he just drops the football. You've got to be kidding me. You cannot drop the ball on a day in which you have to stay on the field. The pass protection I thought was good at times, and then on other plays it wasn't. Look, they had offensively 15 points and 214 yards in the first half. They were moving at the start of the second half. They were 5 for 10 on third down before the Jaden injury. It just didn't feel like it was in sync, though. It didn't look that way. It didn't feel that way. They couldn't get out of their own way. And again, to emphasize, it couldn't happen because of the opponent they were playing and what that opponent was doing when they had the ball, which was scoring. I didn't like the tempo at the end of the first half because I think it allowed Dallas to get the ball back and essentially erase the good deed done at the end of the first half, which was scoring on offense. Now, I think one thing Brady didn't point out is that tempo may have played a role in the success of that drive. We know how much of a role it's played in the success of their offense, going back to last year. But they had to consider the game context, and that is we need to score a touchdown to make it 20-15, but we can't leave enough time on the clock for them to get an Aubrey range, which is the 50-yard line, or even worse, them to go down and score a touchdown, which they did in 40 seconds with 2 timeouts left. So I didn't like the way the last, drive was managed. No takeaways, 3 total on the year. Only the Jets have fewer. That's killing them right now, their turnover margin. And the last thing on the list of things I didn't like is you don't go for 2 that early in the game. I'm sorry. In a game like that where there are going to be a lot of scores, a lot of different types of scores, right? We had a safety, we had a field goal, we had touchdowns. 7 minutes and 38 seconds left in the first quarter is not the opportunity to try to make it a 3-point lead at 8-7. You just take the 9-7, knowing that there will be another opportunity if you need to do it to go for 2. Look, if they went into the game saying, we got 7 2-point plays that are going to work against this terrible defense, we're going for 2 the whole game. We're going to pick up a net number of points via the PAT, going for 2. But that's not what they were thinking. They were thinking it's 8-7. Oh, the chart says go for 2. The chart shouldn't be looked at with 7 minutes and 38 seconds left in the first quarter. That makes no sense to me. Certainly didn't cost them the game, though. All right. Your calls, other observations, including what I thought of Jaden before the injury when we come back.
What changed for the offense after?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't have just be both me if I was just saying this change or that change. Like, we hit the mark in a lot of ways. And going in, like I said, we had a specific way if we wanted to go play, to go win it. And when you don't do that, it's collective. It's not, about one.
I hadn't heard that one. There at the end, a specific way they wanted to go in and win it. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you, part of that plan was, we got to win this by maintaining possession of the football on offense. And they didn't do it enough. They just did not do it enough. They had to know that this was going to be difficult defensively. But the opportunity against Dallas's defense was to, keep up. And they didn't. And then the quarterback that would have given them a chance maybe in the second half to keep up got hurt. All right. Other observations and then your calls. So I'll start with Jaden's day. Clearly not his best, as I've already discussed. Didn't get much help, with the drops and the penalties. And I think maybe, a little bit more patience with the run game on Cliff's part. But he also was not at his best. He missed a couple of throws. His accuracy this year, even going back to the opener against the Giants, hasn't been what it was last year. Now, you could certainly point to the receivers that were on the field yesterday, for sure, but he missed high on a throw to Ertz, missed lane on what should have been an easy pitch and catch, quick out. But I think they both happened, by the way, in the same drive. Brady pointed out, and I think this is an all-22 question, that there were some throws he could have made, and he made other decisions. I think you can say that about every quarterback every week, but still, it was Brady. 12 of 22 with, I think, 3 drop passes, maybe a fourth, for 156 yards and basically, just barely over a half of play. He had some moments, man. The 3rd and goal touchdown pass to Ertz was outstanding. He had a couple of other really good extension off-schedule plays as both a passer and a scrambler. I think highlighted by the play before the play he got hurt. That 3rd and 10 to Moore was massive. And that got him down to the Dallas 39. And, I kept thinking they're going to score here, and it should be for the lead if they had managed the end of the first half better. He had the early 44-yard connection with Moore on their first touchdown drive, multiple conversions on 3rd down, including the touchdown to Ertz, including a 3rd and 10 to Robbie Chosen in the first half, the 35-yarder to Jalen Lane, a little bit off schedule on the 3rd and 6. Had some really good scrambles on that final drive of the first half, had that 3rd and 2 designed run on the first 3rd down in the 3rd quarter where he got to the sideline and reached the ball out for the first down. Did a really good job to snag that bad snap at the goal line by Biotish. Last week, it wasn't a bad snap. It was a wet ball that he tried to hand to Bill and ended up, costing them really the game. Yesterday, he just kept it himself. Regained possession of it, kept it himself, and ran it in for a touchdown. I thought he did a really nice job on that free shot to Chosen on the offside. Should have been DPI, defensive pass interference. But like the rest of the offense, and I'm sure no Debo, no Terry, those are the two biggies, Noah Brown to a lesser extent. They've made do with just Debo on the field. But last week or Monday night, Debo wasn't completely healthy and obviously out yesterday. But still, overall for me, I think this was Jaden's most disappointing game of the year because the opponent was so bad on defense themselves coming in. Again, the penalties, the drops, those things, are a pain in the what. But he was always able to overcome those things in the past. And he didn't really, for the most part, do it yesterday. Again, we've seen slow starts turn into heroic finishes with this guy. And maybe that's what we were starting to see on that first drive of the 3rd quarter, but we'll never know. I think he was a C. in a game in which he needed to be an A. And yeah, you could pin it on limitations offensively and mistakes made by a lot of the rest of the offense, but we've never not expected him to overcome those things in the past, especially against a team. Green Bay was difficult because they're really good defensively. This team was not good defensively, and he didn't overcome it. He didn't. Maybe he was on the verge of it, but we'll never know. Other quick observations. Marcus Mariota. Man, I'll tell you what about Mariota. He is excellent on zone read, decision-making, and then keepers where he runs with the football. He looks better than Jaden running those right now. Certainly this year he does. He had a couple of decent throws. Marcus Mariota is a dual threat quarterback. That's what he was in college when he won the Heisman Trophy, and that's what he's been in the NFL. He's not a drop back and pass quarterback. He is effective when he is dual threat, where he is part of the run game, a big part of the run game, and by the way, taking advantage of being a part of the run game. But God almighty, I mean, that interception was horrendous. The fourth down that they went for where McCaffrey is wide open. And guys weren't necessarily wide open, but McCaffrey was. He missed him by a mile. He took 2 sacks on 10 dropbacks or on 12 total dropbacks. That's not good. I said this on my podcast last night before the QBR rating came out for the game. I'm like, QBR is not going to treat him well. I didn't realize it treated him this badly. In the game, he was a 7. Hold on, where is it? I had it. Again, he played a half of football or a little bit less, a 7.4 QBR, a 22.1 passer rating. With that said, I do love the dual threat stuff with him. I think he's an excellent zone read decision maker. And I think he's a really good, even at this age, a really good runner. He's just not a drop back guy. He never has been that. If he has to play Monday night, he's going to be a big part of the run game. You're going to see a pure, I think. Look, he does a lot of the same things Jaden does, which is why he's the perfect backup in the perfect situation for this team. And I have confidence that if he has to start a game or two, that they'll be competent offensively. But what I think you'll see more of is I think you'll see more aggression from Cliff in the dual threat QB attack from an option, run standpoint and from a designed run standpoint. Bad calls in the game, man, and missed calls. I'll start with this. I thought the defensive pass interference on the first drive of the game against Lattimore was really, I'm not going to kill the call, but Brady was wrong that all he has to do is get his head turned around and it's probably not called. He did get his head turned around. It wasn't completely turned around, but he made the effort and the head turned and looked back at the ball briefly. I just thought that, are we going to get this called today? I mean, how they called that and didn't call the one on Robbie Chosen at the end of the first half is not consistent application of the defensive pass interference penalty. I thought the roughing the passer on Jacob Martin when Prescott's helmet just came off because clearly it was loose was a terrible call. Now, they had illegal contact on that play as well. I mean, they really, got their money's worth on penalties yesterday, but 15 yards versus 5 is a big deal. I thought the tripping on Yankoff on the kickoff return was real ticky-tack. It wasn't a pure trip, and the ball carrier was basically on the verge of going down anyway. The false start on the long snapper that would have given them a first down had it been called offsides. Even Pereira said that's not the kind of move that a long snapper makes that usually gets flagged. He described it as slow motion, not even a normal motion, certainly not a jarring try to draw him offsides motion. That would have been a first down had it been called offsides. It would have been a big play. And of course, Robbie Chosen's defensive pass interference at the end of the first half that wasn't called was a joke. Look, let me be clear. None of these missed calls, bad calls were going to affect the outcome of the game. There were a lot of them in that game yesterday, and it seemed like Washington was on the short end of the stick on a lot of them. Cosme was back. He did replace Wiley, as Steve Suter emphatically said he would. He said there's no chance you can take Chris Paul out of the lineup. I thought Cosme held up well. The review of all 22 could reveal something different, but I thought he was good in pass pro. And I thought the pass pro at times was good and at other times not so great. Brandon Aubrey, man, 61-yard field goal. Now the all-time record holder with five career now, 60-plus field goals. There are many more to come with this dude. By the way, Dallas had a lot of penalties in the game, too, 10 for 79. I think Kinlaw drew 2 holds in the game. I think he did. So Dallas wasn't at their best or their cleanest, and yet they scored 40-plus for their third time this year at home. They've only had 3 home games. They scored 40 and beat the Giants in overtime. They scored 40 and tied the Packers in overtime, and they scored 44. 3 home games, 40-plus in all 3. And by the way, Deron Bland, he now has 6 career interception returns for touchdown. Now, Rod Woodson holds the NFL record, 12. But remember in 2023 when Bland had 5 of them, and he earned All-Pro that year. That was kind of an easy one. I mean, Mariota under pressure, about to get sacked, just chucked it on out there for Bland to pick it off and run it back for 6. All right, your turn, 301-230-0980. I promise I see all of you on hold. We'll start taking calls when we come back. Your chance to vent here on this Monday following a blowout loss to the Cowboys. Lots of big picture takes, I'm sure, and lots of micro, takes from the game yesterday. I do want to tell you real quickly before we break that we had some HVAC problems, and we called Foley Mechanical, and they delivered big time. Dan Foley is the owner. He came out himself, dealt with my wife and I. One of the more impressive people in business in this area. He owns 100% of the company, no franchise, not some private equity firm, division. He controls the quality from the equipment to the people he hires. His team, they're professional, they're skilled, they are sharp. Foley Mechanical is a full service heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers company, and they are the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty for Foley Mechanical. They work across the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help, my recommendation, if you want it done right, is to call Foley Mechanical. You can go to FoleyMechanical.com, but mention and ask for Dan Foley, and tell him that I told you to call.
Timeout left for Dallas. After the sack, it's Prescott. Launching, going deep. Pickens with good coverage. He's got it!
It was easy at times, wasn't it, for Dallas? They basically, for all intents and purposes, in 3 quarters, 37 points over 400 yards. They were toying with Washington defensively and offensively in this game. They needed to match. They needed to possess the football. They needed to win the game on offense, and they didn't do that. 44-22, day after, your opportunity right now to vent with, by the way, Kansas City on deck. The line was 5.5 points before the game. It was off the board last night. I would assume it's going to be pretty much off the board. You may see numbers out there.
9.5.
What'd you say?
9.5 going into Monday night. That is the current spread on the FanDuel Sportsbook.
So they must assume Jaden's not playing.
That's
it was
what it
5.5
like.
yesterday. I'm seeing 10.5. Wow, I just pulled it up. I'm seeing them as a 10.5 point underdog on Monday Night Football. So they are clearly betting that Jaden is out, and maybe they know something. We'll find out today. We'll keep our eye on the reporting, and Dan Quinn will address the media at 3:30. Chris, I'm sure we'll have that for you when it happens. All right, your turn. 301-230-0980. Let's start with our guy Joe in Springfield. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, Joe? How are you?
Well, let me vent a bit. I have one positive thing, but I do have to leave a big question to you about yesterday. What I liked was Deron Payne. You talked about Deron Payne has had a great season, and having Javad Kinlaw on the side him, it's been great seeing the two of them play with each other because it's been a difference. I mean, the 3 batted passes he had on the safety, but remember, the very first pass that Prescott threw, he literally threw it to Payne. Payne could have had a pick 6.
Oh, yeah, forgot that play. Great call, Joe. He did.
Yeah.
He did. He almost had a pick on that opening drive. True.
Yeah. So my question to you, because I'm not even going to discuss the penalties. I mean, some of them were questionable, but Marshawn Lattimore running to Quan Martin, let's not even go there because I was messed up. But here's my questions to you going into next week. What is our identity after 7 weeks? What are we planning on doing after this? We got 3 more primetime games coming up. It's not looking good, and I'm totally honest when I say that. I know going this game, we had our 3 top receivers, well, 2 because Noah Brown's on IR, and it would be tough. And now our quarterback is in jeopardy with a hamstring injury. We have 3 more primetime games coming up. We have more elite quarterbacks playing, which we did not face last season. I agree with you because it was going to be tougher now with Mahomes, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff. Where are we going to be after the bye week, after we play Madrid against Miami? Are we going to have a season? It doesn't look good right now.
Yeah, they're going to look. This is a moment, and it's a moment, by the way, where the coach has to get it together as well, and that's what I'm interested in. What are they going to do to address what is now a defense that is leaking like a sieve? What are they going to do if Jaden can't play a couple of games? And by the way, if he can, without the receivers, because there's no guarantee Debo and Terry will be back anytime soon. I'm hopeful Terry will be back. It sounded like he was getting closer. Debo probably shouldn't have played on Monday night. He didn't look like himself, and there were discussions after the fact that he was pretty close to being inactive for the game against the Bears. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Look, I think Monday night is going to be pretty difficult. But then you've got 4 games in which 3 of them are at home and 1 of them is in Madrid against a team that right now might be the worst team in the league in the Dolphins. So there's a long way to go. I do feel like because of the injury to the quarterback and the fact that the defense is truly bad, that we're teetering right now. We're teetering. And like the next 3 to 4 games, obviously, you still have after 3 or 4 games, another 6 or 7 left. But I kind of feel like these next 4 are going to determine the season. And the Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions, Dolphins, Broncos, right, with 3 of those games at home after the Chief game, 1 of them in Madrid. You probably have to go no worse than 3-2 in those games. to get to 6-6, entering the last 5 to really feel like you've got a legitimate shot. And you got to go into those last 5 feeling like you are on an uptick health-wise and otherwise.
And 4 or 5 of those, Kevin, are against division opponents. I mean,
which will be the opportunity.
Right now,
that'll create an opportunity for him, no doubt. Thanks, Joe. As always, let's go to Taylor in Chicago. Taylor, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? Doing okay. Look, I got a few points. You can't win a game and excel on offense if your top 3 receivers are injured. It's just not. It's impossible. The replacements basically can't win games against starters. That's never happened in the NFL, and it won't happen. Our DBs look horrible. Amos, I really don't blame too much because he's kind of catching up to the speed of the game still. But Lattimore, I mean, he was getting picked on over and over and over again. And on that Lamb touchdown, they ran into each other. They've been doing it all year. Bears movie. It's like it looked horrible.
It's really absurd.
Jaden keeps getting hurt. He's too light in the you-know-what. I think personally, he has to add 15 to 20 pounds of muscle somewhere. Lower body, upper body, don't really care. But the training staff has to do that for him for next season. He's having too many muscle injuries. He's getting banged up too many times to carry the ball, and he's just too light. My last point is every year I go to an NFL game. Typically, never I go to a Commanders game. But this year, I'm going to the Monday night game in Kansas City. I was so excited when I bought my tickets, so excited about my flight, so excited when I bought my hotel. I was like, hey, I'm about to go to fly to KC. I'm going to eat at 1587. I have a reservation there, which is hard to get. I'm going to get a beef on bun on bread at Gates and watch Mariota stink it up. No, thank you. I think the season is obviously, if we don't go and win the next, to your point, go in the next to get back to 6-6 or the next few weeks, it's tough sledding, and there's no way with this team the way we are and injured right now that we're going to be able to see a playoff berth if this keeps continuing to happen. So those are my points, man.
Look, these seasons turn on a dime. We see it all the time. Things that happen make no sense. I mean, if the Giants hadn't blown what was a dominating 3-quarter 19-0 lead, the Giants right now would be 3-4 and trending much more upward in the division than Washington would be. It's a long way to go. Phillies win yesterday. I mean, they can't throw the football, and then Jalen Hurts has the perfect day offensively throwing the football. There's a long way to go here. There's a long way to go. I said this in the open. I do feel more alarmist today than I thought I would feel, partly due to the quarterback being injured again, the team being injured again with even an Armstrong injury, and just the realization that we are stuck in year 2 of Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. with another bad defensive football team. And this year, you don't have Jake Haener and Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson coming up. You have Patrick Mahomes followed by, the Seattle offense and then Jared Goff. You got Bo Nix, who's playing at a high level. And you still, late in the season, have Prescott again, Jackson Dart for the first time, and 2 against Hurts in Philadelphia. Last year, this is something that we talked about all offseason. They were really, really good, and they overcame that bad defense. But part of it was that, they had some good fortune, in terms of the teams they were playing and when they were playing them. This year, it hasn't worked out that way. They got a little bit lucky facing Russell Wilson and the Chargers when they were banged up along the offensive line. But it looks like they're catching the Chiefs at the wrong time. And we'll see what happens the rest of the way. They're going to go play them anyway, regardless of what any of you think. But I am a little bit more disappointed and panicked today than I thought I would be, because I did think there was a chance they would lose the game. I thought they would play well on offense and win the game. I really did. Dallas is not a good defensive football team. They changed up the way they played, and they had the ability to change up the way they played because, Matt Eberflus essentially said, yeah, you guys don't have any receivers that we've even heard of. We're pretty sure that this is the game in which we can load the box to stop the run and play man coverage, which we don't play very much of. Ian, go ahead.
Kevin, as you know, you and I went back and forth a little bit yesterday evening via DM. I'm glad to see you're panicked, and I'm glad to see you're disappointed because this is unreal. There were multiple fans during the offseason saying very fair questions. Hey, why don't you have Terry in earlier? And you can blame it.
Why don't you have what?
On Terry McLaurin.
Oh, Terry, I'm sorry.
I don't recall. Was it Paulie who said that there's a chance for a soft tissue injury? That came to fruition. Then I questioned bringing in Debo. I know it's just for a fifth, but you wanted him, or Adam Peters brought him in not to be a backup receiver. He brought him in to be one of the core receivers. He's old and injury prone. And guess what he's become? Injury prone.
Yeah, but there was no downside to bringing in Debo Samuel. I mean, that was very little risk, high reward. Go back to Terry. That's a better conversation. You're dead wrong about Debo. There just wasn't a lot of risk there. And he's a perfect fit for this offense. And you've already gotten an S-load out of him to help you win the 3 games you've won. So move back to Terry. That's a better leg for you to stand on.
No, Kevin, if the goal is to win a Super Bowl, you need to have a receiver be there the whole season. Even if he came in as a 7th round or a 7th
you can do both.
Trade.
You can do both. The point is there wasn't a lot of risk there.
Kevin, at the beginning of this offseason, who was their starting 3 wide receivers? Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Debo Samuel. Is that correct?
Yeah. And they were all out yesterday. Yes. Move back to Terry, though. I want to hear where you were going with Terry. Because I think this is an interesting conversation, has been an interesting conversation, and will continue to be. So go ahead, state your case.
So on Terry McLaurin, when he didn't play this entire offseason, you ran the risk of him getting a soft tissue injury, which is what has occurred. I think if you were Adam Peters, you make that deal that you offered at the end, which is the 44 guaranteed and that extension, much earlier. Because
how do you know they didn't? How do you know they didn't? I'm pretty sure that was pretty much on the table from just after the early stages on. Okay, Terry and his agent ended up bowing to come way down to accept that deal.
So your assertion is they offered that exact deal early on, and it's 100%
not at the beginning, but early enough. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't, because
it doesn't matter. That's the least of the issues. The bigger issue is, and I've heard this so many times over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure I'm going to hear it all this week. Terry, the soft issue, Paulie nailed that. And I think we all said, you know what? There is some truth to that. Yeah. When guys hold out, there just always seems to be a soft tissue issue. But that aside, like this idea that the team was the culprit in all of this, I just completely disagree with it. I think the team went well beyond what they needed to because they did want Terry signed to a contract extension. They didn't have to do it. There's nothing, and it doesn't happen all the time, where a player at his age going into the last year of his deal gets a big contract extension. So they embraced the idea of actually giving him $45 million or one more contract of generational money when they did not have to do it. And it was Terry and his agent that had a delusional picture in their minds of what that extension should mean. And that's why it lasted that long. That's my belief. I think it's grounded in some information that's been out there for a while to a lot of us in the media. And he should have, I'm not blaming just Terry, and I didn't all along. I didn't blame just Terry. He is a grown-up, but his agent thinking that he was Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or even the DK Metcalf deal is what held this thing up for weeks and then months on end, in my opinion. He should have signed what they offered him, early enough and been in camp, because he got a deal in which he did sign, and I think he was smart to sign it because they didn't have to offer it, and he didn't have to make $45 million of guaranteed money when that money would have never been there and available for him next year. I think that he is at the very least, 70% of why he wasn't in, he and his agent, in my opinion. What else?
Can I get a rebuttal on that?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Do you think he was offered the deal that you alluded to before he did that 40-minute press conference diatribe?
I don't know the exact deal, but from the very beginning, I said they don't have to do this, but if they do it, it can't be more than $50 million guaranteed. It just would be a horrible precedent to set. And he wanted 80 to 90 million guaranteed.
I
and so it just
that.
Was never going to happen. If anything, what the team could have done in retrospect is gone to Terry and his agent and said, look, we're just so far apart. Let's put this on hold. And we'll address it, after next season, and you'll have the opportunity to go to free agency if you want after this upcoming season.
Kevin, myself, and others called in saying that because what they did is the worst case solution. They
try to be nice.
Something that was they were trying to be nice, and they almost like created this disrespect.
Maybe, but would Terry have held out?
I don't know, but again,
that's a big question, though, right? Like we're sitting here saying, and we're agreeing on something. Maybe the team just should have never offered, even broach the conversation about a contract extension. But don't you think Terry would have demanded one and would have held out anyway?
Honestly, if we could go all the way back, I think the minute they knew they didn't want to offer Terry what he was requesting, they should have traded him before the draft and drafted a wide receiver.
Well, that's a new wrinkle because I don't think you suggested that one back then.
No, but my point is, when
we knew pretty early on that Terry and his agent were asking for an outrageous contract.
Right. And so if you knew that and you're like, look, we're not going to meet him because our analytics say receivers over 30, blah, 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 then you move on from him as quickly as you can.
Ian, how about me suggesting the following to you? And this will piss everybody off. They probably, maybe for a quick second, maybe considered it. But you know what? His market wasn't worth it because of the money he was asking for. And it would have been a very difficult trade to make because nobody, as Diana Rossini reported and others, nobody around the league would have paid Terry what he was asking for. That was reported by multiple people. All right, I want to move on. What else? What else? Oh, okay, Ian, sorry. Max dropped you accidentally. We want to move on anyway. But I knew Terry was going to be a part of the conversation today. My opinion is what it's been. The team did not have to offer him a contract. He was under contract. They offered him a contract because they did like Terry, because they did respect Terry, because they did want him back for more than just 1 year. But the idea that Terry and his agent had was so delusional relative to what his true value in the market was, it created a weeks and months long confrontation that didn't end well, and it's not a pleasant thing right now. I agree. I hate the way it ended. I think, honestly, at the very beginning, if there had been some recognition of, hey, we can't ask for that. Let's try to get to something. Well, they could have gotten to something where they ended up getting to much earlier and he could have been in camp. With, by the way, wow, at 30 years old, I got $45 million more in guaranteed money, and I've got a chance, if I play well over the next couple of years, to make a lot more than that. We're just not going to see eye to eye, me and many of you, on the Terry issue. I acknowledge that. The team, from my standpoint, didn't have to do it. And they were being incredibly generous to do it, not for just generosity's sake, but because they liked the player and they wanted the player back for more than just 1 year, his last contract year. Let's go to Jeremy. Jeremy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Oh, my God. Did I just listen to 20-minute conversation about Terry McLaurin's contract? Are we kidding me? Coming off a 44-22 loss to Dallas? We shouldn't have done a damn thing with Terry. We should have let him come. If you didn't want to play, don't. We'll fine you. And then if you played great, we give you a freaking franchise tag. My ears are bleeding listening to that call. You know what?
Look,
you know what
Jeremy, my ears are
call.
bleeding too, but I'm going to tell you, this is a big topic with a lot of people. I think you and I have been kind of on the same page as it relates to this for a while. They should have at some point said, take it or leave it, and if you don't do it soon, we're moving on, and we'll start to fine the crap out of you if you don't show up.
Then we are a delusional fan base if that's our focus today. You know what the problem is? I turned on the San Francisco 49ers last night. Half their team is injured. I see guys that are probably from Texas A&M, Ole Miss, that are 6'4", 240 pounds, that run a 4.1 and are killing people all over the field and making Atlanta Falcons, who skull dragged us, look like they couldn't do anything. They're winning games. You know what? The problem with our team is, the philosophy from the top is we are blinded by the success we had against garbage teams last year. And Jaden's greatness carried us, and miracles carried us into the NFC Championship, which, let's be honest, we did not have the talent to be in then, and we most certainly do not have the talent to be in now. Our roster is so bad and is being completely mismanaged. It's insane. If Quinn isn't getting crushed today in the same way that our defensive coordinator is, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Well,
as a fan base?
Wait a minute. I agree with you on the roster. It's very limited. We talked about it. But if the roster is your biggest concern, then Peters is the one that you want to kill, right? Today?
Absolutely.
That you want to go after.
They're both culpable. Peters is definitely on the hook for this. But maybe if we didn't get Terry's stupid money, we could go out and get some depth. Wagner cannot move. He couldn't move last year against Andrews and the Ravens. He can't defend anything that's not a halfback dive up the middle. Guys,
halfback dive up the middle.
our philosophy has to be we have to get to 3rd and 4 or 3rd and or less and go for it. We cannot punt. We cannot defer any game. Our coach doesn't want to have a slow start. Why ever defer?
He didn't defer. Dallas won the toss and took the ball. Just FYI.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that loss. But we cannot stop anybody. We should never. I don't care if we're on our 10. We should not punt.
Well, you can't go for 4th and 10 from your own 10. You can. You're allowed to. But I don't think you'd actually advocate for that. But you're not. Your exaggeration is taken in good stead from me, because this defense for the second straight year is god awful garbage. It's really bad.
This is my suggestion to the fan base. On Sundays and Monday, we're playing Detroit, Seattle, Kansas City, and we're talking about getting to 6-6. Kevin, Sunday, chill. Spend time with your family. Hope that we lose every game, and Jaden has a grade 2 hammy that keeps him out 6 weeks, so he's not banged up for the rest of the year, and pray that we draft talent, because, guys, we are not good enough.
Well, you know the problem with that. We don't have a lot of picks. And by the way, with your mindset, and I'm not disputing it, although I would dispute that the season is completely over at this point, because it just isn't. But I am alarmed, a little bit more panicked than I thought I would be on this Monday. But with your reasoning, now that I've gone on 20 minutes with you, is that they should trade and be a seller at the trade deadline. Deron Payne would be a guy that you could probably get something back, because they don't have a lot of picks for you to tank the rest of the season and think we're going to rebuild with the draft. They traded 8 picks in the offseason for 3 players. So
we swung and missed and whiffed on Lattimore, right?
Okay.
But if you get rid of Payne, then you have to go find another tackle. Good.
Again, I'm just saying that if your idea is to punt on the season and have it tank and then go after talent, there aren't a lot of picks, and to acquire more, you got to think about dealing guys like Deron Payne by the trade deadline. Thank you, Jeremy. Good call as always. Everybody stay on hold. We'll get to more of your calls next. All of our NFL conversation on this show is brought to you by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and on Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. On Twitter. Are you serious, Sheehan? The defense won the 3 games that they have victories in. Oh, dude. God help you. This defense is horrendous. It is a disaster right now. It can't tackle. It can't stop the run. It can't cover. And I think some of it, if not a lot of it, has to do with scheme play calling coordination. I do. We'll see if Dan Quinn does anything about it. Yeah, defense was pretty good against Russell Wilson's Giants and against Geno Smith's Raiders and against a Chargers team that basically had a ninth grade offensive line from Paint Branch playing in the game. But against any decent opponent, it has been literally run over and thrown over for 60 minutes a game. It's a major, major problem this year, and we'll see if there are any major changes. By the way, somebody sent me the internet guy that does injury updates. I know I've had him on the show before, Jesse Morse, Dr. Jesse Morse. He said about Jaden's injury, right hamstring versus knee injury. His hamstring was stretched in an abnormal position. If his knee is involved, it's most likely an injury to his posterior meniscus. ACL, unlikely, but possible. You would think it would have been to his left knee the way it bent, but no, that was the knee he previously injured. You can see him grab the back of his right leg knee at the end of the play. Look, they said it was a hamstring injury, that he's getting an MRI today on his hamstring. So we shall see. 301-230-0980. Let's continue with calls. Our guy Mark in Largo. I couldn't wait to take this call. Mark, go ahead. Have at it.
Normally I don't agree with Ian, but I think what Ian was trying to say to you, Kevin, and I'm going to explain it to you like you're a 10-year-old. Go back 30 years ago or almost 30 years ago when Juwan Howard left. And everybody in this town lost their minds because Abe Poland didn't pay. But we all said, he's not worth the money,
right,
but he's worth the money here. I totally agree with you. I wouldn't give, he's not worth Chase, Jefferson, Metcalf money. But, Kevin, what are your other options here? None. So I agree with you. That's what I think everybody has been trying to tell you. No, he's not worth, and that's what.
Well, first of all, not everybody's trying to tell me anything. This has been a debate ongoing for a while and been a very polarizing issue. I think the point is what you say.
Because I think.
Go ahead.
I think what you're saying is, and I understood. Look, it's over and done with, and I get it. Now let's get to the real problem at hand here. Okay. Kevin, you need to start looking at yourself in the mirror and start asking yourself, is Adam Peters the right guy? And I've been on the air saying this for the last year and a half, ever since he made that John Dotson trade, that he acts out of emotions. He doesn't act like normal men act. I thought that Jahan Dotson trade was a horrible trade. Thought it was a horrible trade. You got 3 picks from it, fine. But I still thought it was bad because you're taking away a guy.
Did they get 3 picks for Jahan Dotson?
They got 3 picks, and how's that working out right now?
They got 3 picks for Jahan Dotson?
So
3?
Here's the other thing, Kevin. Here's the other thing, too.
But you do this all the time. You do this all the time. You just spout things, and I need to go back. I'm like, Max, did they get 3 picks for Jahan Dotson? I forget. Maybe he's right.
They got a 3rd rounder and 2 7th rounders. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You want a cookie for that? Okay. Now back to what I was saying. The bottom line is this: you traded for Debo, which was a horrible trade.
Okay.
But
they traded Dotson and a 5th rounder for a 3rd and 2 7th. So in effect, they traded him for a 3rd rounder.
So in the past 2 years, you've gotten rid of 2 5th-round picks, basically, for receivers.
Yeah. Right.
You got rid of 1 for Dotson and 1 for
I'm just pointing out you forgot a big part of the trade.
So look, let me ask this question, Kevin.
Ask me. Ask it.
Up here and talk about everything else that he's done. The reality of the situation is there's a lot of availability and these people aren't available. Every day he's trying to get people off the streets to come in here.
Yeah.
The number one thing you're supposed to do for your franchise quarterback is put talent around him. And Kevin, let me ask you this. Of the 6 quarterbacks, who has the worst talent around him that came out in the 24 draft? Daniels.
Okay, but
and it's not even close.
Okay, but there's always a little bit of nuance, which sometimes you're incapable of providing with your very emotional rants. The
I'm not
cupboard
emotional, man. I'm
was
just stating facts.
the cupboard was completely bare when he got here. So the previous regime, and I think the guy's name was Ron Rivera, certainly bears some, culpability for where the roster is now. Stop! Stop! Shut up! And let me respond. When you're talking and screaming and we're both doing it at the same time, it's terrible radio. So just shut up, slow down. I'm going to let you talk, but you got to let me talk after you've talked. All right? So the cupboard was completely bare when they got here. And what I've suggested to you and anybody else that wants to, I guess, move on from Adam Peters after 19 months is that you need more than just one off season to fix it, to fill that cupboard up with things. And by the way, a lot of the moves they've made have been very good moves. In fact, they participated and contributed to the team winning more games than it had won in 34 years and advancing the furthest in the postseason that they had advanced to in 34 years. I am willing to sit back and wait on the evaluation of Adam Peters for more than 19 months. You apparently are not. So we move on. What's next?
No. Here's the reason why I say that. They're not going to get rid of Adam Peters, and that's the very reason why they're not getting rid of Joe Witt. Because I'm going to tell you the conversation that's going on, and this is real talk, what I'm about to tell you, Kevin.
Well, versus the previous talk, which wasn't real. It was fake.
Well, whatever. Josh Harris is having a conversation with Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and Adam Peters. Now, if Adam is recommending that we get rid of Joe Witt, you know what Dan's going to say? Well, you know what, Josh? We've been needing a defensive end for the last 2 drafts. Hello, have we drafted one? See, that puts everything to rest right there about Joe Witt.
That's it. That's the walk-off moment, the Mike moment when Quinn just walks right out of the room and says, "Get out of my face, Adam." And the whole place is blowing up out in Ashburn. I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's happening. Yeah.
I know it's not happening.
You just said it was happening.
Joe's not going nowhere, and Adam's not going nowhere. Look,
you just said what's happening is Dan Quinn is in a confrontation with Adam Peters.
Right.
Right now. Right now. You just said it's happening right now.
Yeah, I do think that's. I think not only him. I think it's Cliff Kingsbury too.
I don't think. By the way, I gotta go. I gotta go. You're exhausting. You're fun though. You're a lot of fun though. But I agree with you that Joe Witt Jr. is not going anywhere. I do have, as I had last week, I do have a hunch that maybe something's coming with respect to the defense. I do. But we'll see. All right. Ben's going to join us actually at 12:25. If you're on hold, stay there. I'm going to try to give all of you a shot after these words from a few of our sponsors.
Blitz is coming. Mariota in trouble. Being ripped away. Stays alive. Throws it in the front. And picked off. Guess who? Durant lands. One man to beat. Pick six.
This from Jack. Jack writes, Kevin, I think Ian and that crazy Mark might be right, even though I'm sure it's revisionist history for them rather than what they actually thought back in July. If the team had no intention of paying Terry what he and his agent wanted, they should have traded him immediately. Yeah, Jack, that's great, but there was no market for Terry as long as his contract demands were what they were. Remember when he asked for the trade, Diana Rossini and others said no one's going to trade for Terry because nobody thinks he's worth what he's asking for. So that's just not, it's nice to kind of, act like, well, back then I was kind of suggesting, well, no one was, first of all. Secondly, to look back and say, if they really, really weren't going to pay it and they were convinced that Terry was going to turn this into a, camp-long holdout, they should have traded him. There was nobody in the league that wanted Terry McLaurin for the money that he wanted to get paid. So there was no trade market. Not to mention the fact, okay, that when you trade somebody that you have to pay, you don't get enough back in return. And lastly, the team did want Terry to play for them this year. They liked Terry. It's why they offered him the contract when they didn't have to do it. Jeremy in Baltimore's about to have an aneurysm because on the day after a 44-20 bloodletting in Dallas, it's Terry McLaurin Day, like we're, on August 8th. Let's go to Bobby in North Carolina. Bobby, go ahead.
Hey, brother, I love you today for an hour and a half today, but I really want to talk to you. And sometimes I think I go off on this radio show. But anyway, that being said, I got 5 quick points, Kevin.
Just 5. You did, Bobby.
Yeah.
You held long enough. You get all 5. Let's go through them.
No, I'm gonna be real quick because I know I got to go in a meeting. I'm waiting on phone for an hour. Anyway, defense is terrible. 27 consecutive freaking weeks having this conversation for the most part, Kevin. Defense is the number one problem with this organization now, okay? Number 2, we got the score down to, we were outplayed the whole first half. Kevin, it was a 20-15 game with about 40 seconds on the clock. We were in the game, okay? 3 plays later, they freaking give up a touchdown again, so we're down 2 scores, okay? And we were going to get the ball out of the second half down 20-15 if we would have held them. Wagner and Ertz, Kevin, they probably shouldn't have been re-signed. It was probably an easy decision for the organization to give them 1-year deals. They're both aging. They're both showing their age. Bobby can't run, Kevin. He is not helping this defense at all. And I know you said he's the captain of the defense and all this stuff, Kevin. He cannot move outside the tackles. I love Bobby. He's been a good Redskin now for a year and a half. But you've got to get somebody else a chance in some situations, okay?
Yeah.
And don't run him out there 100% of the time. Ertz can't catch the ball as much as he needs to. He's got 1 or 2 drops every game. Number 4, Lattimore needs to get off the field. He can't play, period, okay? He can't cover me, Kevin, okay? He's getting turned around every which way he can, okay? And he just cannot play anymore. I'm putting Sanders through on the outside and give Noah Eisen reps inside, okay, and see if that makes a difference. You can't tell me that, we're not better talent-wise in the back because I know we are, okay? Sanderfield was flashing all of last year. Quan Martin flashed last year. Now, all of a sudden, those 2 guys can't play. I just think you need to make a few changes. And lastly, Dallas coming into the game, they were known to play zone, zone, zone. Guess what? They made an adjustment last week, Kevin. They went a lot of man, okay? They put 8 or 9 people in the box all day long. And I'm telling you, my wife was watching the game. She said, look at all the people at the line of scrimmage. They can't block everybody.
The Bears did. The Bears played a lot of men in the box on running downs too.
That's why,
there have been 2 straight games of a difficult time to run the football. Here's my question back to you. I still feel like they should have tried more. I sometimes think they don't try enough to run the football and they get away from it a little bit too quickly. But I get it. Last year, anybody loads the box and plays man coverage, they're checking to something that's much better, and it worked all year. But with the players they had on the field yesterday, maybe the heavy jumbo with Trent Scott and trying to, stick with it. But here's the problem, Bobby. You're getting scored on every single time you leave the field. You can't afford to leave the field.
I know that, Kevin. I understand. Okay, but you got to do something different. We're doing the same thing defensively. He's rushing 4, dropping 7. I called you a couple of weeks ago and told you this defensive concept is based on pressure and turnovers, and we are doing nothing in those 2 categories. 3 turnovers after 7 weeks. I mean, no pressure at all, Kevin. They're rushing 4, hoping they can get home, and we are getting picked apart, man. So I know you got to pick your poison. Yeah. Guess what? I'm gonna put 8 or 9 in the box. I'm freaking going after the quarterback and let him make a hasty decision, and you might get a turnover here now and then. But anyway, I know you got a million calls.
They can't buy a turnover at this point.
I know they can't, but they're not. They're just falling back in zone coverage, Kevin, and I mean, it's just getting worse.
Well, they don't do anything well. That's the problem is, Bobby, and you know how much I love you and love your passion, that you've offered a couple of solutions, but it's not like personnel-wise they got a lot of places to go. That's, and that assumes that personnel is the bigger of the issues. I'm not sure that's the case. I think scheme and having these guys in a better position is a big part of this. I do.
100%, Kevin.
Yeah.
But listen, it's just like my job and your job. If I do the same things wrong every day, I'm gonna get the same results. There's somebody you gotta. If it doesn't work out, go back to it. But you gotta try something different, or it's not. We'll get different. It's gonna be the same thing.
Well, I mean, hell, against Atlanta, they tried a lot of different things. I got to go back to see how much they tried. Here's the one thing I'm going to say. This will probably piss a lot of you off. I don't think it's a lack of effort or urgency or trying or culture or anything like that. That's why I'm really, disappointed if there isn't something that changes to address the actual outcome. The outcome.
They play hard.
Yeah, they do.
They play hard.
They do.
They play hard. I don't have a problem.
Yeah,
with their effort.
they're just not good.
There, it's just something's not right. Okay,
something's not right.
I'm thinking it's a scheme. Okay, something's not right, brother.
I think that's a big part in it. I don't know if these guys are in the positions they're supposed to be in to have the most success. And as far as Lattimore goes, I was thinking yesterday with him, on Pickens, it's like this is exactly why they traded the picks for you, is to match up with a Lamb or a Pickens. And to end up with more good than bad. Corners are never going to be perfect. We know that. But he is so heavily outweighted on bad versus good in those matchups that get highlighted the most. All right. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it. And I appreciate your patience, as always. Let's go to Ralphie in Rockville. Ralphie, same to you. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. So one thing, right? We didn't see these many coverage breakdowns with Jeremy Chin last year. It was the run defense that struggled.
Right.
So Quan Martin, right? He can't fill the Chin role of being the leader on the secondary that communicates with others. That's what a lot of people haven't noticed. Like when you look back last year, Chin was the one who was communicating to everybody. Quan is lost out there. He can't tackle. And that.
Did you think Harris had the whole thing figured out when he was in?
No, he didn't. But if you look at that underthrown touchdown to CD Lamb, that was supposed to be an interception yesterday by any starting free safety. It was right there, Kevin. It was an underthrown ball, and Brady pointed that out. And listen, I was in support of Adam Peters, and I'm still a huge supporter of Adam Peters, right? However, he made a lot of bad decisions, from signing Matt Gay to that guaranteed deal, who got another penalty yesterday that led to a touchdown. They started on the 40. So, from trading for Lattimore.
What play did you just say? Sorry, I missed that.
Matt Gay got a penalty. Remember, they started at the 40.
Oh yeah, when he kicked it out of bounds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like he does that every other week.
Right.
It's terrible. And you can't cut him because you gave him guaranteed money, and you can't really sign any other kicker that's good out there. So
Right.
From signing Adam Gay, trading for Lattimore. Now Lattimore, I can't be too hard on him because he was in position. It's not like he's not there.
He was in position. It seemed like more yesterday than he has been. You're right.
Exactly. And it's just like Dak threw a perfect ball to pick it. It was right in the bucket. It was.
Yep.
You can't throw it any better. It's just better play by the receiver. So I'm not going to be too hard on Lattimore, but he is a liability because he can't cover. And he doesn't have that speed, but he still has the physicality and the effort. And people, they want to talk about the tackle. I mean, that was just a better play by Williams. Lattimore should have got lower. That's it. Just what it is. What it is.
Yeah.
So, and then my biggest thing, right, is this, right? This is my. I'm like I said, I'm still a supporter of Adam Peters. I don't care what nobody says. I still support him, and I think he's going to get this thing turned around.
I mean,
my biggest problem with him.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with him. My biggest problem with him, right, is when you trade for Debo, right, and I was a supporter of. I thought Debo was a huge upgrade from De'Ami Brown. But my thing is, if you do that, you can't bring Noah Brown back. He's too injury prone. He's only played 3 games in the last 13 games, I think.
I know, but
So,
what were their
you
options? Tell me what their options were.
Kevin, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. You could have got Luther Burden. You could have got it was plenty of options, Kevin. You know what I mean? Like you could have got. You can't bring Noah Brown back. He can't play. He's done. He's never going to be the same. He has like 14 injuries.
You know what's so
I don't
funny
understand
about
how you
this
brought
part of the conversation, Ralphie, is that when we talked about a second receiver, which was on my top 5 priority lists, now they added Debo, they added another weapon, but adding a legitimate sort of outside number 2 receiver, most everybody balked at it because that's not where the emphasis needed to be in the offseason. They did upgrade offensively by adding Debo, by adding Tunsil. The trade for Tunsil's an investment in protecting your quarterback. Okay, it doesn't matter how it's worked out injury wise. The move in that moment, and I still think was a good move. I think Tunsil for the most part has played well, but you couldn't address everything. The Luther Burden thing, there were some receivers. We talked about them, all the way up, but they ended up drafting another player offense that they thought made a lot of sense, especially after they got completely ravaged in the trenches against the Eagles. They upgraded. They wanted to get bigger on defense, and they wanted to get bigger and better in the offensive line. And that's what their focus was in this offseason more than anything else.
But Kevin, you got to realize that Noah Brown can't play. He's too injury prone. You cannot bring him back. He's too hurt. He's just going to get hurt again.
You don't have an unlimited number of draft picks. You don't have total say in free agency, and you didn't have enough picks after you'd made 3 trades to make many more. So you can't solve every single problem in one off season. You just can't. So they felt like Noah Brown for, a limited amount of money was worth bringing back. They felt like basically a very low risk, high reward scenario in Debo was perhaps better than bringing a guy like Stephon Diggs or going after a T. Higgins, which was really the conversation more than any other receiver in the offseason. Thanks, Ralphie, though, as always. Jason in Laurel. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
What's up, Jason?
I'll try to be coachable.
It's okay.
I'm like just shaking my head. We're talking about Terry. We're talking about Joe Witt. Like that, those things I don't think are the problem. We had a magical season last year on a last place schedule and a quarterback that was like a gift from God. Now we don't have a last place schedule, and that cupboard was bare. You said it a couple of calls ago that the cupboard was so bare. I don't think to a man most of the fan base understands that. I mean, it was terrible.
I think the fan base understands that. I think they realized it was basically a one-man show to the NFC Championship game last year for all intents and purposes. We knew that the roster was going to be limited. We knew that there was a chance. I mean, my record prediction is going to look silly at 11-6, but my point all along was they could actually end up being a team that maybe overall in year 2 improves a little bit, but because of what they have ahead of them, at least on paper with the schedule, end up with fewer wins. But yeah, I think everybody understood how, but people are also impatient. Remember, last year's season raised the bar so high, so quickly, and perhaps unrealistically so. I bought into it. I thought, look, as long as Jaden plays 17 and is healthy, they're going to be back in the postseason with a chance to do some damage. But that's in jeopardy right now. We did know, though, that the roster was depleted or bare. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Lots of young people play. I want to see lots of young people play. Obviously, I hope Jaden's okay. And if there's anybody on the team that's older than 27 that has any kind of trade value, I want them to trade it.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I appreciate that, but 7 games into the season, there is no way I am punting on the season at going into week 8.
Not saying punting.
Well, you want to see the young guys, you want to see the developmental guys, and you want to get value for their starters that are older. Which, by the way, there's not a lot of value.
There's so many holes. I don't think they can fill them all in one season. I think they maybe need 2 seasons.
Yeah, of course not. They've only had 2 off seasons to try to do it.
We'll still win some games because we have Jaden, but I really think the talent pool is poor. Thank you for taking my call. Hopefully,
thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Let's go to our guy. Let's go to Anthony in DC. Anthony, go ahead.
Kevin, when I say the words Michael Ray Richardson to you, what immediately comes to mind?
One unbelievable playoff series against the 76ers in 1982, 83, and then drugs.
The ship be sinking.
Oh, that, yes, yeah.
So
it could be, but I'm not ready to jump off it after 7 weeks. No chance.
No, I mean, we go up to the deadline and see what's happening before we jump off. But I got a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
A few weeks back, I said to you that because of the success of the prior year, we've depleted our already depleted assets going forward,
right?
And that it was going to take approximately 2 to 3 years to get this roster right. And in so many words, you basically said I was crazy.
I did? About not having draft choices? No, what I would have said is what I'll tell you right now. They made the decision to treat the rookie contract as the first window to try to win big. And I agreed with it. But I didn't say you were crazy. I would never say that. I've suggested that there are 2 ways to look at the draft choices. I was in favor when last year ended to consider the rookie contract as an opportunity for window number 1 to go all in. They traded 8 picks for 3 players, and to your point, it's depleted their ability to continue to try to upgrade, what is not a super strong roster. But they also added, Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, who's helped them win 3 games. But Marshawn Lattimore, obviously, is the bust of the 3 by far.
I'm being a little facetious when I say you called me crazy. But my point is, I was saying that it's going to take at least another 2 to 3 years to build out this roster, especially on the defensive side. Because basically the over-the-hill gang doesn't play in today's NFL. And, I mean, think about it. We got to replace Wagner. More than likely, we're going to have to replace Lattimore. Are you going to give Payne a contract? Who's going to replace Dietrich Wise? Who's going to basically all of these 1-year contracts? They can't do.
Well, that gives them some flexibility too. Remember that.
Well, think about it.
And they understood that.
They need, in my opinion, they need a game record. They need a Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, so on and so forth. But when you look at the landscape of the league, there aren't any out there because they're all signed.
Yep.
There are no free agents that immediately come to mind to say, okay, we can go after him. If there are, I'm missing them because I don't see them. So that brings the problem. The only way to get a him is you have to have a him. You don't know it. You draft somebody, you don't know they're him until they are him. So the only way they can get somebody like that is to trade for them. But they don't have any assets.
Yeah, but and to your point, none of them are actually available. We thought for a brief moment that maybe one or two of them might be available, but they weren't, as it turned out.
So you have limited draft capital for the next 2 years. There are no free agents that immediately come to mind. Therefore, 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years to get the roster right.
Yeah. I think it takes. Yeah, I mean, you can certainly hit on a higher percentage than you normally hit on, and let's not forget that the reason that they, last year's offseason and this year's offseason, with the exception of Kinlaw and the trades, okay, and those are big deals. I'm not suggesting they're not, that they put themselves into position to move on quickly if it didn't work out. I think some of the bigger issues are going to be if the next few weeks, well, we've got one game before the trade deadline now. One game, just the Kansas City game. I don't think they're punting on the season. I doubt there'll be a seller at the trade deadline. That's my guess. But if they, have Jaden gone for a long period of time, then they might end up doing that. I got to run, Anthony. I'm up against a break. I got Ben Standig coming up. Those of you who I didn't hit, we'll come back to it for a few minutes at the end of the show. I'm not asking you to hold for the whole time, but we'll try to take calls at the end, and we'll hold off on all the other sports and the other NFL for tomorrow. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. From Carlson on Twitter. Blessing in disguise if Jaden's hurt. Mariota was outstanding. They'll be better off with him. You can't be serious. You're not the only person, by the way, Carlson, to say that. Tell me you didn't watch the game without telling me you didn't watch the game. I mean, I like Marcus Mariota, and I love the way he runs the zone reads. He had in the game, what did we say, Max, in the break? 21 snaps in the game?
21 snaps. I think we broke it down
13 of them
series.
were horrible. It's not his fault. He had the same limitations that Jaden had, and he came in and he wasn't a part of the game plan. I'm not blaming him, but you can't possibly have watched that game and been like, whew, okay, we got our guy now in Mariota. Like, did you see the pick six? Did you see the fourth down in which he missed McCaffrey by about 20 yards? Wide right and high? I mean, I like Mariota. And by the way, if he has to play on Monday night or the game after that, I feel great about him versus a lot of backups. He is perfect for this situation. And having a full week, we know he can play still in this system in particular. And I do like the way he runs the zone reads. I talked about that. He's a dual threat quarterback. You know, he's a true and very good dual threat quarterback who looks really good right now, health-wise, you know, running the football. We saw it in the Raider game. We saw it even to a certain extent in the Atlanta game. But you can't be serious to think that he came in and played well. Like, I don't know what he'll grade out as. I'm actually now very interested. Not that, you know, Pro Football Focus is the end-all, be-all. But I said on my podcast last night, I go, this is not going to be one of those games he's going to want to look at the QBR number in the game. And I hadn't seen it yet. It was a 7.4. About as bad as you can be QBR-wise. But again, I'm not blaming. It came in, and they're down by a bunch of points. They're getting their ass kicked. They got 3 receivers out there that are, you know, way down the depth chart. Well, you know, not starters. It's not like Jalen Lane and McCaffrey haven't played a lot this year. But yeah, I don't know how you could watch that game and think that Mariota played well. He had a couple of good runs. He had a couple of good throws. 21 snaps. Most of them were not good. He took 2 sacks and should have almost got 4, escaped a couple of them in 12 dropbacks or called dropbacks. It's not a good sack percentage rate. But again, not his fault. I like Marcus Mariota. I do. I'm just not going to sit here and tell you after watching what I watched that, oh my God, thank God he's here. Because they got an answer, he's better than Jaden. You guys are insane. You can't possibly think that. Maybe they do. All right, let's bring on our team insider, Ben Standig. Last Man Standing is the podcast. Last Man Standing is the Substack, which I have subscribed to. Ben is such a good reporter and columnist covering this team. You can follow Ben on X, on Twitter, at Ben Standig. Let's start with kind of the 2 big picture questions. The defensive coordinator, or just the defense in general, and what Quinn said after the game. We'll get to that. I want to start with Jaden Daniels, the injury, the hamstring, MRI today. We'll probably hear at some point today how it went. What are you expecting?
Well, I mean, based on what we know, which is not a ton, but just a little bit of information that's come out, you know, the supposed him, you know, winking to his mother, making a gesture to his mother, indicating he's okay. It doesn't seem like it's some catastrophic matter. Now, whether that means he's good enough to go for next week, you know, that's going to be tricky, right? It would be difficult for any player to be dealing with a hamstring injury, but one whose mobility is central to what he does, because he's not like a pure pocket passer in that regard. That seems like it could be more problematic. So if you tell me the end result is here, he misses the game in Kansas City, I won't be surprised. You know, at this point, hopefully it's not more than that. But you know, I think it's going to have to be something they take a long consideration into. I mean, you know, it didn't look great when it happened. And again, with his style, hamstring injury, you can't let this thing linger beyond whatever the most minimum amount of time is for recovery.
All right. The second biggest story coming out of the game yesterday was, once again, the defense was horrendous. And what Dan Quinn said in his post-game presser left an open-ended question that maybe gets answered later on today or at some point this week. But I want to know what you thought when you heard Dan Quinn when asked about the explosives that the team continues to give up on defense, saying, quote, he's going to look at everything, closed quote.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's something you say after a game. In other words, it's not just on any one play or any one player. Everything is up for grabs. And obviously, the one topic that we haven't really had too much, gotten into a ton, at least with regards to Quinn, is would he make any changes of coaching responsibilities with Joe Witt as the play caller? Now, Quinn's response was, he was later asked about that specifically, about potentially changing who's calling plays. He said, well, he didn't say yes or no. He just said that he's always on the calls. He's always communicative within the calls. So it sounds like he was saying he already is taking some level of responsibility for what's going on. But, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to have to consider that. Again, we don't always know, if Marshawn Lattimore is getting beat. Is he getting beat because he was put in a bad position, or is he getting beat because, he failed to make a play that he was put in position to do? I'm not just pointing him. He was the guy that was getting beat a bit last night, and it's sort of an obvious one to target. So that's the thing that they have to make honest assessments about internally. But yeah, I mean, it's on the table now, and I'm glad, for the purposes of what the hell is going on here, I think it needed to be.
Yeah. I kind of laid out the options Quinn has when he says, I'm going to look at everything. What's he looking at? Well, option one would be to do nothing. Option two would be to do something with the defensive coordinator, take away his coordinating and even game day play calling responsibilities and take it on himself or give it to somebody else. Option three would be to just make personnel changes. Option four would be to do both, to do something with the defensive coordinator and also make personnel changes. And then option number five would be, and I think this is a long shot, but it could be to let Joe Witt Jr. go after 7 games. Which of those options do you think he'll choose?
The Joe Witt part to me is sort of going to be the last resort. I just don't know that that Quinn's going to go there. This is, of course, a coach that he brought over with him from Dallas. Quinn is on that side of the ball. It is reasonable to think that he has more of a say what goes on there and kind of leaves Cliff Kingsbury to do his own thing on offense. So I imagine Quinn already feels like he's involved to a degree. Does him actually calling the plays versus, what's going on now? Is that what's going to flip this switch? I don't know. I know it's more than just the play calls. It's what goes on over the course of the week. But, the head coach can only do so much. So, I don't know that that's the move. The problem is, okay, fine, let's go look at personnel. We talked about the depth concerns about this team all year long. I honestly don't know in most cases what the personnel change would be. Right. First of all, on the defensive line, they've already had a bunch of defensive end injuries. Now Dorrance Armstrong leaves this game. He missed practice all week with a hamstring injury. Now he left this game with a knee issue. And he didn't, left in the first possession, didn't come back. We'll have to see where that is. He's been their best pass rusher by far. But even beyond that, they have now run out of viable bodies to play on the edge. If he's out, for any length of time, that's 3 defensive ends they've lost. You're now relying on Jacob Martin, who's been a good player, but he's undersized to be a 3-down defensive end, and Preston Smith. He just got here 10 minutes ago, and, let's just say he's more of a reserve at this point of his career than a starter. So they don't even have guys to turn to. So there's that. And then, same thing with a linebacker. If anybody wants to say, hey, sit Bobby Wagner, okay, well, cool. But, to what end? Who is McGee ready to go in there? I don't know that he is. So that's the problem. I just don't think they have a lot of options, at least on the offensive line. after week 2, going from Coleman and Allegretti to Wiley and Paul is sort of the equivalent of like rearranging the deck chairs, but they were all like, okay, well, maybe let's just try this. And it did work. I don't think there's the equivalent on defense where it's like sort of well, this could work. I don't see what they can do. Maybe there's something subtle. Maybe there's uncertain packages, but in general, I guess I would still, if you make me pick, I would say that the personnel, I just don't know exactly what I think that would be.
I'm kind of with you on that, and I kind of talked about that. You know, there aren't a lot of moves to be made there, but if you don't think that that's, you know, something that's viable because there aren't a lot of options, and, you know, you don't believe that the odds kind of favor some sort of, you know, coordinator and play calling responsibilities, or even firing Joe Witt at this point in the season, then you're probably leaning towards Quinn doing nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, the column that I had up today after the game was about how, you know, the one thing that's been preached over and over again since Quinn and Peters arrived is the culture, right? And, you know, we view culture typically from a, you know, build each other up and help each other, you know, when you're having a bad day and all these kinds of things. But it also can lead to, or it can be a factor in improvement, you know, being, you know, holding each other more responsible. I don't know, I'm not saying that they're not doing these things. I'm just saying if you're going to talk about this, if you're going to build up the oldest roster in the league, in large part to establish this culture, which is important because culture is not, you know, talent waiver, injuries happen, but culture is supposed to be a constant. You need to rely on what it is, your DNA, you know, whatever it is internally to help you improve. I mean, there's, you know, we can sit here and say make a move at the trade deadline. That's not gonna, you know, that's not gonna be the solve for this problem. So they're gonna, I think at the moment, honestly, the best thing they can hope for is, you know, get pissed off, get on each other, work harder. I know that all sounds sort of cliche, but like I said, I don't think there's really too much they can do in the personnel department, especially with the injuries up front. So I think that's what they're going to have to lean on as much as anything, i.e., yeah, Quinn not doing anything, but this is, again, why you build up a culture, why you build up an internal sense, you know, and you've got to lean on that right now to fix it, I think.
All right. Before we get to the larger picture of where they are right now in this season, just your big takeaways from the loss yesterday in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, you know, starting with the offense, obviously Jaden going down is, you know, the big topic. They didn't lose this game because of that. They were already in rough shape, and when they were down 27, that touchdown right before halftime for the Cowboys was so killer. Not just because you don't want to give up points like that. You had some momentum after scoring on your own with 40 seconds to go, but because they just don't have the personnel to come back. Like they, you know, the receiver room was absolutely, you know, bad. I mean, it's not the players' fault. They don't have the abilities. So with Dallas seeing what the Bears did last week, they crowded the line of scrimmage. They basically said, go ahead. We're going to take away the run game, take away Jaden's legs as best we can, and make you throw it to the outside. And, you know, again, if you want to tell me next man up, fine. It's beyond reasonable at this point. At the receiver room, they just don't have the pieces. So I think offensively, I think they did in the first half reasonably fine, all things considered. But when you talk about, you know, a team sport here, like you've got to have the defense has got to step up, knowing that the offense is so shorthanded. So to give up that score to me was just such a killer. And then Jaden getting hurt right at the start of the second half, it was just the you know, all the cold water possible thrown onto any thought of a comeback. I think the defense, you know, it just continued to be the same things over and over again, allowing too many big plays. Again, when you take out Armstrong, the defensive line, I mean, there was one point out there was a play where it was like Deron Payne, and he was the only defensive lineman on the field, and it wasn't even like 3rd and 30. It was like, you know, relatively normal down and distance because they were just trying anything. So, you know, you feel for them in that regard, but
again, too
What
many.
play was that? I
year.
missed that play. A play where the only defensive lineman on the field was Payne. I missed that play.
I at least, watching it as I thought that's what I saw. I haven't looked through all the play chart, but yeah, I mean, to me, there was a play where it was him and it was, maybe Jacob Martin was there in the 55 number for me, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like the bigger guys, like he was the only one I thought that was out there on the field at that time. And look, I mean, you have to, as you know, you're a basketball guy too. Sometimes you got to throw up junk defenses when you're missing rim protectors or whatever it might be. And that's what it felt like they were having to do. And you can't live on that in the NFL. Injuries are a huge problem, but the defense in particular, it's the issues we've been seeing over and over again all season. And every game, especially the last month, slow starts, giving up the big plays. It's been problematic. I mean, the secondary is not missing really. I mean, I guess they're missing Harris, but general, they have their guys. And, they're still giving up too many plays. But when you're not pressuring the quarterback, doesn't matter who's back there. So, yeah, it's a lot of problems right now.
All right. They've got 10 games left in their 2025 season. They're 3-4. And, of course, the world is caving in on this team, according to, everybody that follows it closely, or most people that follow it closely. What do you think?
Look, I think it's fair. Look, obviously the next week they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And it wasn't that long ago that people were, starting to throw dirt on the Chiefs, which was just so incredibly stupid because the Chiefs still have all the reasons as to why they've been, the most successful team for the last, decade, starting with the quarterback, but also just, a lot of the core players, strengths that they have. They just, it just wasn't working out for them. Now they're getting guys back from injuries. It's looking better on offense in particular. I don't know we can't sit here and say realistically that Washington in their losses this year has looked formidable, but the other team just beat them. We can't, that's just not a realistic thing to say. They're giving up an average of 407 yards in the 4 losses and over 30 points a game. Even in some of the wins, if we discount the wins over the Giants and the Raiders because of the opponent's status at that point, the win over the Chargers, their most impressive win of the year, still had, the hallmarks of these issues, right? It still had the slow start, the big plays. So this is kind of just who they are at this point. And that's different than saying, hey, we're not getting the wins, but, we're right there. I don't think we can say that in all honesty. So that's why it's like, yes, you look at you say it's only 3-4. You're like, well, come on, that's not that bad. Half the league is 4-3 and 3-4, but it just doesn't feel like there's obvious solutions right now, and that's not even factoring in what the schedule is coming up. The next 3 games are going to be very, very tough. So starting with next week, so yeah, it's hard right now to say this is why they're going to turn around. It's all good. I don't know how you can say that right now based on what we've seen.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you later in the week. We'll see what develops here over the next few hours, if anything. Appreciate it as always.
Of course, Kevin. Thanks.
Ben Standing, everybody. When we come back, there's some numbers out there from yesterday's game that I want to share with you. One in particular that just tells the tale on the defense. We'll do that to finish up the show. We'll save all of the other NFL and some of the other sports stuff for tomorrow's show. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. I just read from Nikki Javala's column in The Athletic, and there were some interesting numbers in there from the game yesterday. So Washington now through 7 games has allowed the 6th most explosive play count in the league, and that is defined as 16 or more yards on a pass play and at least 12 yards or more on a run play. So number 6 in the number of explosive plays they've allowed now through Sunday. But 5 of this of the plays that they've allowed, what did I say? 16 or more yards and completions in the league. Yeah. 5 of the explosive plays they've allowed this year have gone for more than 50 yards. That's the most in the NFL. There have been a couple of big plays that have been called back by penalties, too, including one yesterday. Also, specific to the Cowboys defensively yesterday, it was very obvious that they were loading the box and playing man coverage when, typically teams will play a lot more zone coverage, especially against Jaden Daniels, because you don't want to play man coverage against a guy that is, that effective as a scrambler, because in man coverage, you often have your back turned to the quarterback. Well, yesterday, the Cowboys used man coverage on 48.4% of their snaps. That was the highest percentage any team in the league played man coverage yesterday, the 7th highest by any team in a game this season. The Cowboys legitimately changed everything about the way they play defense. Remember, the Bears on Monday night changed a lot about the way they play defense. They really made an effort. And why are teams, the last 2 anyway, why have they done that? Well, they've done that because, in part, their defenses have struggled. And so they were looking for a way to change it up. But Washington, with the depleted wide receiver core, there just isn't anybody that scares the defense. And so they feel like they're able to play man coverage, and they're able to play man coverage, straight up across the board and take everybody else and load the box to stop the run. Washington also yesterday in the game had a 51.6% catch rate. That's the lowest for them in 2 years. Look, nothing looked great yesterday other than Tress Way's punting, and I thought Daron Payne. But you have to, in a game like yesterday, we talked about it on Friday, knowing that it's a mismatch. It is a complete and utter mismatch because your defense is gruesome at this point. It is, another Halloween term since we're coming up. It's ghastly. It is a ghastly defense. You knew on offense you were going to have to keep pace. And to do that, you couldn't drop passes, you couldn't commit penalties, and you couldn't turn the ball over. And they did all of those things. And that was a major problem. And yet it was 20-15 late in the first half, scheduled to get the ball to start the second half, and Dallas scored in 3 plays. In 30 seconds. They should have handled the last offensive drive differently. That is for sure. All right. At least this isn't in the context of organizational dysfunction. At least we're missing and being able to justify omitting that from the conversation. Now it's all about the product on the field. That's nice if you're looking for a silver lining. Back tomorrow. Chris Russell's next.